Hey everyone, it's Emily, and for this video I wanted to share an update of all of my video game purchases I've made so far in 2024. This year I really tried to challenge myself to do a low buy year where I would be a little bit more deliberate in the titles I pick up, and I tried to curb a bit of my spending and buying habits when it comes to buying games to add to my collection. Given the current state of the economy, as well as me transitioning to a brand new job, I really wanted to be very deliberate with my hobby spending and try to curb it as much as possible. So I will detail all the games that I purchased as well as how much I spent on them as we get into this video, and talk more about what made me choose to buy these games at this time. So first off, I'm going to share some of my collector's editions that I purchased so far this year and kind of made updates on social media, but never really made a video about them. The first being the PS5 version of Trails of Cold Steel 3 and 4. So this is the exclusive collector's edition for the game that you could buy off of NAS America's storefront. And while I already own these games and played them already, I was really looking forward to replaying them on the PS5 before I began Trails into Reverie, which came out last year, so that I could really appreciate what Trails into Reverie is as the kind of culmination of the Cold Steel and the Crossbell arc together. So I sunk in a lot of hours into my replay of 3 and 4 and have now completed it and have made some progress into Reverie, which I'm hoping to finish before Trails Through Daybreak comes out. And I will say that the PS5 enhancements are really nice. I had originally played both of these games on the PS4 back in the day, but I kind of rushed through them because I had very limited access to a PS4 at the time while I was in grad school. So I really took my time replaying these, playing around with all the DLC in-game costumes that is included in the PS5 version, and overall just immersing myself into the Trails world once again. And I think the PS5 version is really the way to go if you haven't purchased these games yet already and own a PS5, because I do think the PS5 version does enhance quite a few things, especially the transition times, so you're not kind of waiting there when you enter into a new building or something. But in truth, if you already own the Switch and PS4 versions of both of these games and are really satisfied with your experience in those, the PS5 version is really very optional. The collector edition itself comes in this beautiful box and does include quite a number of goodies inside. There's not a lot of new goodies inside if you already own the previous platforms collector's editions. The only new inclusion is a map of Erebonia, which in truth I don't think is that great. It's nice and large, but I really don't like the material it's made out of. I think on camera it looks really nice, and comparing it to some of the other cloth posters we received in previous NAS America collector's editions, I thought it was rather subpar. The other big JRPG franchise I purchased a collector's edition for this year was Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I've been slowly making my way through all the Final Fantasy VII games, and I've talked about my experience with the OG version on the Switch not too long ago on the channel. And I've also since completed the Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core Reunion game on the PS5 and really enjoyed my experience with that and getting to know Zack a bit more. But I'm thinking after I wrap up my Trails journey with Trails into Reverie as well as Trails Through Daybreak this month, I'll have to get into the remake as well as Rebirth for this franchise because I'm already pretty committed. And one of the reasons why I ended up pre-ordering this game, even though I haven't played Remake yet, is I had to get the Best Buy exclusive Steelbook, which is beautiful with Tifa, Aerith, and Sephiroth. But I'm sure many of you already know kind of the contents of what's inside the deluxe edition, but you get another Steelbook with Cloud and Zack there, which is a nice addition. It also includes a mini soundtrack that's included inside this jewel case box, as well as a nice little hardbound art book. That has a lot of nice illustrations. And you may have noticed behind me, I've kind of made a little Final Fantasy VII shrine. I feel a little bit kind of silly having done this already, even though I haven't played the remake or Rebirth yet, but I really couldn't help myself but get the Insomnia cookies little promo that they were having, because that was the first time I ever had a sort of video game promotional item available in my area locally, and especially one that's JRPG themed. Just making me more excited to play these remake games and kind of seeing how they diverge a bit from the original that I've already experienced. So to continue on with some JRPGs that I ended up pre-ordering last year, in fact, I finally got my copies for Persona 3 Portable as well as Persona 4 Golden on the Nintendo Switch. So both of these were published through limited run games, and I've kind of talked about extensively on the channel my qualms when it comes to the limited run games model, where it's really kind of inspiring FOMO buying that I've been really trying to resist, especially this year. But as you can see, the FOMO bug kind of hit me for both of these. Overall, I'm glad that I did pick these both up, even though I really don't like how limited run games just gives you a month to make a pre-order, and I really don't like to buy games that I'm not going to play right away. So I'm not really sure when I'll get to both of these, but I really do want to dive deeper into the Persona games because I have enjoyed the SMT games I've played so far, and I just feel like the Persona games are probably up my alley. Still a little bit hesitant on some aspects that I know about these, but I think overall they'll be something I'll enjoy. But one of the things I wanted to talk about during the segment regarding limited run games is something that's been kind of frustrating me, especially as of late, is just how many large companies are using limited run games to create their physical releases. We've seen this with a few other companies like Konami and Bethesda, and now Ubisoft with the Beyond Good and Evil remake that's coming out, I guess next month. So I'm a little bit frustrated with how much we have to rely on limited run games for publishing these games and in that limited time window, because all these so far have been numbered releases, meaning that they won't get reprinted. And so you have to kind of order them in that time frame or else you'll miss out. Now there's always the aftermarket, and there are some other stores that do buy up a lot of limited run games and sell them for around MSRP. To kind of combat some of that FOMO, especially if you live in Canada with Video Games Plus. But unfortunately, for both of these games, it does seem like they ran out of copies lightning fast. So I think that little secret is now kind of out of the box. So we really can't rely on certain retailers to buy these games from. And it just seemed like we have to kind of go with limited run games if we really want these games in our collection. And I guess give in to FOMO, which again, frustrates me kind of to no end right now. And I'm just kind of worried the direction that we're going to be seeing video games in general kind of moving towards that model when it comes to physical releases. And that just really saddens me to no end. So another publisher that does offer limited quantities of their games is I Am 8-Bit, and I did get an order through them recently. The thing I do prefer about them compared to limited run games is that a lot of the times they do reprint their games, and they may not reprint their exclusive editions or their collector's editions, but they do usually reprint their standard releases, especially the really popular retail ones. One of those games is Sea of Stars, which I did end up getting the exclusive edition from their website. So this came with their limited slip sleeve cover, as well as a poster and the exclusive cover art. I've yet to actually play Sea of Stars, but this has become now one of the golden childs when it comes to the JRPG indie scene. So I'm excited to dive into this and kind of see how it plays. So thankfully, you don't have to buy the exclusive edition if you missed out. There's a retail option, there's the Asian English option, and there's also, I think, the limited run games, the Kickstarter backer edition, which again, it's probably going to be difficult to find now, but there's so many options to get this game physically, which is great. I do know that there are different versions of the game on the Switch card in particular between some of the editions, but I don't think the first edition that they released, the Asian English version, is that bad of a build when it comes to the Switch card. So overall, I'm glad I got this, and I do think the slipcase cover is just gorgeous for this, even though it's going to totally mess up my Switch spines in my kind of shelf there, but no matter. When you do order from I Am 8-Bit store, you do have to pay for shipping, so I try to at least kind of group games together to save a little bit in that respect. And so for that order, I also picked up the PS5 version of Disco Elysium. This is one I had previously purchased on the Switch, the North American edition, but as I was kind of playing it in handheld mode, I did notice there were quite a number of flaws when it comes to at least the non-patched physical game cart. Now you could of course download the patches that are available for the Switch version now, that I hear kind of corrected most of the sluggishness and the long loading screens. But when I heard that the PS5 version is available on I Am 8-Bit's website and it runs much better right off the disc, I decided to go with this version as my copy, and I ended up selling my Switch copy. So overall, I'm glad I now have this so I can kind of restart my game. I didn't get too far in the Switch version, so I'm totally okay restarting. But overall, I really enjoyed the atmosphere with how the art style direction kind of went, as well as how the narrative is starting to kind of build up upon itself, and the dice rolling mechanic was pretty new for me. I'd never really played a Dungeons and Dragons sort of game, and they kind of utilized that to make your choices, and this semi kind of RPG-like game. So I'm really curious to dive a bit further into this and see kind of how my playthrough goes. So this next game is one that I briefly showed in my last video where I talked about importing games and other kind of video game related merchandise from Japan. And that is Ganesha. And you may notice that this is a different cover than what you tend to see. This is, I think, an exclusive pre-order bonus that when I bought this off of Surugaya, they just happened to throw in there without me knowing, which was really cool. There's actually a lot of different slipcovers that they had. So they had this one, which I think is my favorite. Different interior artwork too, which just made this a little bit special. But over the last year or so, I've had a lot of people recommend Ganesha to me as a really interesting kind of sci-fi visual novel. And especially after I talked about my experience with Lost Dimension, which is a JRPG, which incorporates a randomized kind of mechanic where your party members have some sort of traitor you have to suss out in order to beat the game. Ganesha is actually a similar premise, but a much shorter experience to a larger narrative where you play the game multiple times and do different playthroughs to kind of determine who the Ganesha is. And it's randomized, I believe, for each playthrough. But the more you kind of go through a loop and either kind of figure out who the Ganesha is, or if you die, you kind of gather evidence to learn more about the characters in your environment and determine kind of more of what's happening in the overarching narrative. So it sounds really intriguing. So the PS5 version does include English on the cart here, but there is also a Switch import version, but you have to be careful because that actually does not include English. So if you're a Switch collector, beware about that. But if you buy it digitally on the eShop, it does have English on it. So just something, if you're interested in this game, you could go the digital route or import a physical PS5 version if you are interested in the physical version. So these next three games are pickups I got through Amazon. All these were mostly on sale except for one, which I'll talk about shortly. But most of these I paid with a gift card. So my previous employer had some sort of incentivized physical activity apps where if you kind of fill them out, you would get Amazon gift cards. And so I basically spent what I got from that on these games. The first one is another visual novel on the Nintendo Switch, and it is Root Tuple. This is the Extend edition. This visual novel is available on other platforms, I think like the PS Vita, as well as a few others, but I believe the Switch version is the most complete version with some, I think, extras in here. This is the retail version, but there's also a limited version, I believe, in Europe from Strictly Limited Games. I don't know if they still have it available in their store. Last I checked, it was still there, but in limited quantities. So if you're in Europe, that might be where you'll need to go for it. I don't know if they made a retail version with the Peggy logo or not. But I believe this is another one that kind of involves trusting other characters, and you're supposed to kind of, I think, use your emotions or something to kind of figure out and make progress throughout the story. And there are two different storylines you can go through, so there is some replayability with this. And I haven't looked too much further into this, so not to encounter any spoilers, because I kind of like to go into a lot of visual novels pretty blind and not knowing too much about what's going on so that I'm surprised. And I think this is one that's probably a good one to go with that mindset going in as well. But this has been a visual novel on my radar for a while, so I wanted to pick it up, especially on sale. And when it finally reached, I think, a price I was willing to pay, I picked it up. And I've been trying to pick up more visual novels whenever they get to a certain sale point, because I've been noticing some of them starting to get a little bit more difficult to find the longer I wait. So I've been trying to kind of prioritize a lot of visual novels as well as, of course, JRPGs, especially on a system that will be kind of interesting when it transitions into the next console sometime next year. Because even though it's speculated that the next Nintendo console is going to be backwards compatible, it's a little bit uncertain just how available some of these older Switch titles, especially from niche genres like visual novels, will be available once next year rolls around. I am planning actually to make a video on how I prioritize which Switch titles to pick up, especially as we transition into the next Nintendo system, and try to pick them up at a certain price point before some of them start kind of disappearing from shelves. And I'll get a little bit more into detail about my thought process regarding that, hopefully sometime soon. For those who are also trying to pick up games while it's a little uncertain what's going to happen next year with the new console. So this next Amazon pickup is one that I've had in my cart for a while, but I kind of put it on the back burner because technically I already own this game on the same platform and that is Trails of Cold Steel on the PS4. So I do own the special edition that came in the cardboard box with a steelbook. But the thing with that is that it did not come with the regular case for the PS4 game. And whenever I looked at my shelf, I have all these Trails games on the PS4, and you can see exactly where Cold Steel 1 was missing when it comes to the regular case. So North America actually never came out with Cold Steel 1 in this regular case. So this is actually the PEGI version. So the European version. So this is just the game with the reverse cover showing on the front here, which I prefer, even though for some reason Emma's not on the cover, which I think is kind of weird. She's on the other side on the regular cover, but she's not on the reverse cover art for whatever reason. So thankfully, you can still pick this up pretty easily, I think for $20, $25 as of now. And I think technically this is ordered through Amazon UK that somehow ended up on my doorstep. But yeah, it's a really cheap way to get an import copy of a great game. Now this last Amazon pickup is one that I admit I kind of paid a pretty penny for, but it's a game that I really wanted to get on the system for multiple reasons, and that is Gravity Rush for the PS4. For whatever reason, Sony released this in limited quantities, I guess on Amazon, I believe, as the way to obtain this for retail price, and once that sold out, everyone else kind of marked up their copies. $70 I don't think is bad for this game, especially brand new, and I was using a gift card, so I kind of used that logic to make it okay in my brain. But I do also want to pick up Gravity Rush for the PS Vita, which thankfully is not as expensive compared to the PS4 version. I think you could still find the Vita version for around $30 to $40 last time I looked. That may change, of course, but I do think it's worth picking up the PS4 remastered version because this does include all the DLC on the disc. Whereas with the PS Vita version, you have to purchase and download that separately. But the thing with the PS Vita version is that this game was really designed for the PS Vita, so I do want to pick up that for the Vita sometime in the near future, just to kind of have that history of the Vita, because I really love the Vita, and also just to kind of play around with the motion controls that really made this game stand out. And I do know there's rumors of the PS5 version of the sequel coming out, so people are speculating maybe they'll also make a PS5 version of the first game, but I don't know. I feel like a lot of these rumors and speculations that we've been hearing lately been kind of annoying. And so while I do kind of consider that with my purchase decisions, I don't try to rely on those as things to stop me from buying things, if you understand. Especially, I think a lot of the Sony rumors have been kind of not always come to light. And even if they do end up making a PS5 version of both the remaster and the sequel, I'm pretty satisfied with the PS4 versions. I don't really see the need to upgrade at this point. So now we're down to the last two games that I obtained so far in 2024. And these last two are ones I admit I did not buy myself. The publishers actually sent them to me for full disclosure. So Idea Factory is known for making these really great collector's editions for their visual novels, particularly their Otome visual novels. So the first one is Sympathy's Kiss. So this is a work romance visual novel, and what's really cool about the collector's edition is how many practical items they include inside of it. There's some really nice notepads and sticky notes and things like that that actually I'm not sure if I can bring myself to use them because they look so nice, and I feel weird sometimes using a lot of the paper goods that come in collector's editions for video games. I don't know about you guys, but I just kind of fear using them. They also include a audio track CD along with a second disc that includes the drama CD, which I think is a nice touch. I think the last collector's edition I received from them did not include a soundtrack, so I'm really happy to see that here. And another practical item they included is this really stunning journal that, again, I'm not sure if I could bring myself to actually use it. It's really nice. It features all the bachelors that you can romance, I believe, in this game, as well as this hardcover art book that shows the character designs and information, as well as certain scenes in this visual novel. One thing that is missing that I was a little bit sad by is the lack of the steelbook, because I think Idea Factory does a great job with all their steelbooks, and so that would have been nice to have one for this, but I understand why they probably went with the more practical items this time around, because this is a workplace sort of romance, and so stationery and those type of things make sense with this VN. So that's what's included inside the collector's box, but they also have an external item that is also included in the collector's edition, and that is this tumbler, which again is another practical item that's really nice to see, and something that I think I can actually bring myself to use since I don't have too many tumblers lying around. So this is also very appreciated, and it comes in this really nice exterior box with some more of the lovely character art. And then the other collector's edition they sent my way is a visual novel that I actually own, so I was really excited to see the sequel here. That is for Cupid Parasite, Sweet and Spicy Darling. So this is technically not a sequel, but the fan disc that kind of extends the romances of the first game. So this comes in a really nice box that kind of reminds me of a chocolate box. And this is what I was talking about when I was praising Idea Factory's Steelbook. I think their Steelbook game is really spot on, and this looks really stunning with all the various characters and melting chocolate. Just really looks great, especially with the holographic finish. So this does include a 2-disc CD of the audio drama. So unfortunately no soundtrack, but if you're into the audio drama, this should be a treat. And they also have this sort of travel book with all these various postcards that you could kind of place in here, which I think is a really neat, a unique item that I haven't really seen in a video game collector's edition before, so it's a really nice addition and something that you could display really nicely if you have room for it. And then last but not least is the art book, which is also hardbound and features various character art and scenes from the VN. So those are all the pickups I've had so far in 2024, and I do have more on the way. So I'm gonna now switch over to my spreadsheets, which it's not really an orbalology video without spreadsheets, right? So I'm gonna share exactly what I purchased so far, including some pre-orders that haven't arrived yet, and how much I paid for them in total. So you guys can get an idea of what my low buy has been looking like so far this year. So the spreadsheet is one that I actually designed myself to track how much I spend on new video games for the year. And it's one that I've actually shared on the channel already. So I'll link down below in the video that I talk about it, where you could download it if you're interested in tracking your own video game purchases. So for the year, I have 16 different games that I've purchased so far. And technically one of them is one that I purchased last year, but I wanted to just let you guys know that it's on pre-order, so I'm expecting this to arrive, and that is the Trails Through Daybreak. Because I'm more interested in what games that I purchased this year rather than obtained this year, I'm probably going to delete this from the spreadsheet after this video. But again, I just wanted to let you guys know that that's definitely pre-ordered. And you'll see some other entries here that I've already talked about and shared in this video, along with some others that I haven't talked about. This first being the Baiten Kaitos 1 and 2 pack from PlayAsia. And so I've had this pre-ordered since, as you see, in January, and I bought it along with this Hakioki Switch version, and so that still hasn't released yet, and I bought the collector's edition for that, so I think that should be coming within the next month or two. They said the second quarter, so it's already kind of the second quarter, so we'll see when that actually arrives here, but those were the first 2 purchases I made this year for video games. And then here I have another pre-order that has yet to arrive, and that is the Baldur's Gate 3 Deluxe Edition, I believe. And I bought this through the developer's website. And so they've had some delays with the North American PS5 versions, and so I'm not totally sure when this will ship, but hopefully sometime soon, so I could share it with you guys. And that's going to be my first true Western RPG with D&D mechanics, so I'm really excited for that. And then after all my Amazon orders, I did end up ordering another collector's edition for a JRPG that may be a little bit of a surprise for some of you, and that is the new Atlas game, Metaphor Refrantasio. And this one looks really neat. I was really sold by the trailers that they've showed so far, and it incorporates a similar gameplay to Trails Through Daybreak that has both an action and a turn-based options. So I'm really excited for this game, and I just really love all the character designs and the fantastical world that they showed us so far. So I've really been trying to not buy too many collector's editions except for franchises I love. And while this is a new IP, I do feel like I really would have regretted if I didn't buy the collector's edition. So I'm glad I did pre-order this, and we'll see how much I like the game when it comes out. And then the last pre-order I haven't talked about yet is for another visual novel, and so this is the Type Moon visual novel, and I talked about Witch on the Holy Night, I think last year when it came out, that I played and just loved, and so this is from that same series, and this is the more popular of their visual novels, and so this finally made it out here localized in the West. And so I'm really excited to kind of see what all the hype's about and just soak in some more of Typhoon's stunning visual novel style and storytelling. So some of the cool features about the spreadsheet is you can analyze various different statistics that you want, like what are some of your spending habits, what sort of games do you gravitate towards, what genres, which systems, and just get an overall idea of what you're buying in a year. And it can be really daunting to add up all of your numbers and see how much you actually spend on hobbies, but I think it's a really good exercise, especially if you're trying to kind of watch your money, especially in hard economic times. These are my numbers, and so I think for the first 6 months and with how many collector's editions I've purchased, I'm pretty pleased with these numbers, and I spent less than $800, which I think is pretty good for me. And this of course doesn't include some of the free games that I've received from publishers, which I'm very grateful for, as well as some of the gift cards I received from work. So technically that was money spent, but I'm not including it as my money spent. If that makes sense, that logic. So you've maybe noticed that my game list here hasn't included any retro titles, and they've all been mostly for the PS5, Switch, and a little bit of the PS4. And so that's kind of deliberate on my part because I've been trying not to look at any kind of used websites like eBay or Mercari and find some games I'm really interested in that I don't necessarily need right now. I think with retro games, the prices, of course, are very volatile. And so some of the ones I'm interested in may go up next year, they may go down next year. It's really hard to say with some of these, but I think at where I am right now, I'm trying not to, again, massively grow my collection and focus more on some games I'm interested in certain editions for that might be harder to find on modern systems. I'm not too sure what my plans are for the latter half of this year. I may try to dive a little bit more into retro stuff and pick up some DS games or PS Vita or maybe even PS2 games I've been eyeing to kind of polish off those collections a little bit more, but I'm still kind of tossing around exactly what I want to do. And of course, continue picking up some Switch games while we see kind of the last cycle of its probably lifespan before we transition to the new Nintendo console. All right, so that's the overview for my pickups as well as how much I spent on video games so far in 2024. And I hope this video was insightful for some of you who are also on a low buy challenge or just curious about my spending habits when it comes to this hobby. I'm again kind of interested to see where my buying habits kind of continue forward for the next 6 months of this year and again for the years to come with how things will change, because I think they definitely will, as we'll probably see some new systems to collect for and some older ones I maybe want to go back and kind of refine my collections with. So it'll be interesting to see where my habits kind of lie in the next 6 months to finish off the year, as well as how it continues into next year, as again I'll probably be collecting for the new Nintendo console along with everything else. But let me know what some of your pickup highlights have been so far this year, and if you've found any sort of hidden gems or some holy grails that you're really happy to have your hands on, and also sort of what your goals are for the next 6 months when it comes to picking up video games. And so until my next video, bye guys.